When done properly, the internet, screens, and particularly social media can provide 5 essential elements of adolescent well-being: a sense of control over one's environment, individuation, self-expression, a connection to others, and acceptance. And then there is the abyss. Welcome to App-Propriate, a podcast designed to give you a little taste into the positives and negatives of the most popular social media apps, so that you and your most importants can make more informed, healthy, and safer choices when it comes to interacting through your screens. I'm your host, Joe Langford. Note that I said safer, not safe. Interacting through screens with other humans contains a degree of natural risk, just like real life. And I believe that education leads to empowerment, and I hope this information helps add a degree of safety, social responsibility, and good digital citizenship to your social networking and the conversations you have about it with your family. Today's episode is about Snapchat. Snapchat falls into the texting or messenger app and self-destructing secret-based app categories. Snapchat is the app that allows users to send photos, videos, or messages that disappear after a set time limit. Thousands and thousands of teenagers have been lured into a false sense of security around the Snapchat app, the wildly popular insta-texting app that's marketed directly to teens. On Snapchat, you can text images and videos to your friends, draw on them and give them captions, add stickers, filters, augmented reality, and/or a location tag. Then tag them with a timer and send them to your friends with the understanding that the post will self-destruct once the timer goes off. The idea was to provide some level of privacy to allow users to express themselves more freely without the fear of photos being shared or living online forever. Mostly the posts, called snaps, are just goofy ephemera and kids screwing around, but it also has a potent reputation of a way of safely sexting, of sharing nude and inappropriate photographs of themselves. Young people tend to be more impulsive, more thrill-seeking, and less apt to respond to dangerous situations with caution and rational if-then thought. These kinds of thinking are governed by our executive functions, which are in a tremendous amount of flux during adolescence. The fleeting nature of Snapchat posts encourage behaviors that can bring heavy consequences to themselves and other people, including humiliation, damaged reputations, and legal charges under the false pretense that the opposite will happen. Because posts disappear when the timer goes off, magically, into the ether, never to be seen again, so no worries, no consequences. Don't worry about it, just post. Ephemeral communication, the kind that disappear, is varsity-level social networking. Personally, unless you're a spy or having an affair or something, I don't see the need for it, but it is definitely not for middle schoolers. Nor should it be a kid's first experience with social media. Like the place those donkey boys took Pinocchio, social media newbies may assume that the kinds of behaviors they see some of their peers doing on Snapchat is how you do social networking, and it is absolutely not. Since its inception, I've had a constant percentage of clients in my office who've gotten in trouble because of their actions on Snapchat, including posting information that made themselves a target of bullying or harassment, contributing to behaviors that led to someone else being hurt, by either themselves or someone else, more suspensions than I care to count, and crossing legal lines, some of which have resulted in kids being registered as sex offenders. Apart from their timed and transient posts, Snapchat's primary format is called a story, a slideshow of users' posts, pictures, and video that are played in chronological order and a kinda refreshing balance to most platforms which appear in reverse, with the most recent posts seen first. Other users' stories and messages and interactions with friends are collated on a feed to the right of the camera on the home screen, algorithmically sorted by who sends you messages and who you interact with the most. Snapchat also specializes in snap codes, unique QR codes that are set up when you create an account, which makes it easy for people to find you on Snapchat. Snap codes can be personalized by adding selfies or other branding, and by taking a picture of someone else's personalized snap code, you can add them directly into your friends list. You can also add them by username, but it's not as much fun. Snapchat's interface can be confusing, clunky, and counterintuitive to more seasoned social networkers, but its creative design feels fresh and pioneering to young users. Its design and marketing strategies are more creative than many other platforms, and they've managed, at least so far, to avoid the targeted filtered feeds, saved and shared user information and data and algorithmic biases that have made some of the bigger social platforms and the 2016 election problematic. Snapchat has shown itself to be an inventive pioneer in social networking, particularly on two main fronts. The first is Snapchat's augmented reality interface. Augmented reality refers to the art or animation that's overlaid onto actual photo or video, using your phone's camera to create an app-based real-life version of Pete's Dragon, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or that time that Paula Abdul danced with that cartoon cat. The medal winner in this area is clearly Pokemon Go, but Snapchat is riddled with fun, augmented face filters that can overlay things like cat ears and unicorn horns onto people's faces, or can de-age you, change your gender, or turn you into a zombie. Silly, yes, but oddly entertaining. Though the inherent silliness and general air of immaturity can lead some people to turn their nose up at Snapchat, it is growing in terms of influence, and it has the ear, and thumbs, of the lion's share of the population between 15 and 25. For all the problems Snapchat has and has contributed to, they are doing some things right. Snapchat offers an element of instant gratification and has given teenagers a shiny toy with which they can play around with. In doing so, it's collected over 200 million daily users who share over 2 million snaps every minute. In fact, Facebook still has the gold medal, but in terms of users, Snapchat, as of the time of this recording, has officially taken the silver medal away from Instagram and is now number 2 in terms of overall mobile usage. The big takeaway here is that Snapchat's not going anywhere. The hope anyone had of Snapchat fading quietly into the mist is never ever going to be a thing. The trade-off is that the culture is shifting in a way, because Snapchat, I believe, /think/hope, is beginning to understand that they can be a legitimate contender as a real social networking platform that can have longevity as their target audience grows up. And Snapchat appears to be attempting to grow itself up a bit in response. Just a handful of years ago, Snapchat's primary draw and claim to fame was the sexting issue I referenced earlier. Today, statistically, the average kid spends an average of slightly less than half an hour on the app daily, creating and sharing content, screwing around with face filters, watching other people's stories, and checking out the app's Discover feature. The Discover feature is located on the right side of the home screen. Discover is a curated feed of content from 50 to 100 high-ranking channels, news sources, and celebrities like Cosmo, BuzzFeed, and, of course, the Kardashians. The content is ranked based on each user's viewing habits and subscribed media brands. Content is not supposed to be sexually explicit based on Snapchat's terms of service, but the content may still have a range of appropriateness for differently aged kids. Snapchat is also working to incorporate news feeds called Live Stories, a crowdsourced news format in which user images can be curated by hired reporters into real-time personalized coverage of current events from concerts to natural disasters. Personalized perspectives that are both interesting and important, organized together to give consumers a unique real-time experience. These kinds of quirky, innovative features, combined with the sense of privacy afforded by the disappearing nature of the content, has drawn 75% of people between 13 and 24 to Snapchat. Ironically, this second aspect, the disappearing posts, problematic though it may be, is appealing to younger users partly because it mirrors how people actually interact with each other in real life. Short, mostly inconsequential, and fleeting. It also avoids the social pressure of how many friends and followers one has that plagues many other platforms. Snapchat doesn't keep count of likes or comments. You can see who watches your stories and choose who you interact with, but that information isn't really made public. But back to the not necessarily positive stuff. Snapchat has incorporated a level of gamification into their design, with the two primary methods being streaks and scores. Snapchat streaks keep a running track of the consecutive number of days friends have snapped each other. This can become stressful for a lot of kids, as no one wants to be the one to drop the metaphorical ball or hot potato. Your score on Snapchat shows how often you use Snapchat, and for some, the higher your score becomes a bragging point or a marker for self-esteem. If your kids are on Snapchat, you've probably heard by now about the new update called Snap Map, which lets you see the exact location of your friends and tell them yours. As a safety feature, Snapchat has made each user's Snap Map location sharing optional and off by default, called Ghost Mode. Snapchat users can choose if and with who they want to share their location, and ghost mode can be disabled or enabled via a slide toggle found in the app settings. This is one example of how Snapchat can encourage some kids to do or say things that they wouldn't typically. If you ask a kid if it's smart or safe to shout their location out to people that they don't know on the internet, they would of course say no. Though as Snap Maps are presented, it's fun and part of how the app works, and, as with ephemeral communications, doesn't encourage kids to think before they send that information. As with the comment threads under any online article, the sense of anonymity and no consequence that Snapchat provides gives even some grown-ups a sense of invincibility and security to do and say things they wouldn't in real life. And kids, even the good ones, even the smart ones, even the shy ones, are even more susceptible to this temptation. Additionally, monitoring with Snapchat is essentially impossible. Other than stories, there's no way to look back through someone's feed to see what's been previously posted, and even stories only stay visible for 24 hours. Even if you have a software package that allows you to see the content of your child's phone remotely, you won't be able to see what's been sent or what's expired. With Snapchat's Memories feature, users can choose specific pictures to save to their own camera roll, and each user has the option of replaying one snap per day. But you can only replay the last snap you received. Again, you can't scroll back in time through your feed. And the user that has been replayed is going to be notified. Other than that, the only way to keep snaps indefinitely is to take a screenshot. The user who is screenshotted theoretically is also notified of that, but that doesn't necessarily happen. Of course, someone can take a photo of a snap on their phone with someone else's phone, and the user would just never know. Which brings me to my biggest concern around Snapchat. You lose all control of an image when you share it online, and kids don't always know this. And the ones who do know don't always understand the consequences that come from this. And the ones who do understand what kind of trouble you can get in or cause with this behavior don't tend to believe it's ever going to happen to them or someone they know. That kind of stuff always happens to somebody else. The default parent response to Snapchat, in my experience, typically takes 3 forms. 1, never heard of it, didn't know it existed. 2, heard of it, and my kid is never going anywhere near it. And 3, crap, my kid has it, what the hell do I do now? These are very typical, especially amongst parents. I myself was a number 2 person for quite a while, but given its popularity, not doing Snapchat can be an enormous social statement that can literally isolate a kid in a very real way from a significant chunk of their peers. So it can be hard for a young person to never be on Snapchat, because young people do dominate this app. Despite all of its efforts and potentially positive evolution, this app is marketed to and driven primarily by young people. And by that very nature, their impulsivity, lack of perspective, and youthful sense of invincibility can cause problems, just like they do in the real world. The temporary nature of Snapchat posts can be both tempting and problematic. That idea that the posts they create aren't permanent or that they can get away with posting hurtful or sexual content without consequence is commonly abused. And underagers, both the innocent and the guilty, can easily create long-lasting consequences for themselves and others. It is totally possible for a kid to be on Snapchat and have totally fine and appropriate behavior, but there's so many people on there not doing that it can be very confusing to people who are new to social networking. Despite a policy that requires users to be 13 years or older in compliance with the U.S. Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, there's no stopping younger kids from signing up with a fake birth date, with or without their parents' help. Snapchat should be reserved for high school-aged kids who demonstrate good judgment. My typical joke is that if a kid is old enough to have earned their driver's license, they're probably responsible enough to drive Snapchat too. And even the lack of monitoring at some point can be okay. If you've ever heard me speak before, I advocate for blocking content for little kids, monitoring as they climb into adolescence, and then relaxing that monitoring and letting that tether out as kids get into their older teens. Eventually, our kids will need to be able to go out into the world and onto their screens without holding our hands, and have those opportunities to remember and practice all the parental advice we've given them over the years, and succeed or fail, or more realistically, succeed and fail. Not monitoring their social networking, or in this case, allowing your older teen to use social networking that is unmonitorable, is a big step, admittedly closer to driving themselves to the grocery store rather than walking to school alone. But a step that every kid needs to make when that particular unique snowflakey kid is ready for that responsibility. and you know yourselves and your kid better than anyone. There are tons of examples of the problems that Snapchat has caused in the real world. I advocate that if a kid thinks that they're ready for Snapchat and are in high school and show good judgment, that they can be tasked with finding and reading 10 articles about Snapchat, its harms, its negative effects on people, and the most common ways that teens can and do misuse it. This encourages them to wade into that pool in a more informed way. And if your kid has issues around self-control, has attention issues, trouble thinking ahead, or a history of bullying others or leans mean girl, then Snapchat may not be a safe or smart choice for them. Bottom line, Snapchat can be a fun and engaging app when used appropriately, but it should be coupled carefully and with very specific behavioral expectations and revisited conversations, or not used at all. I'm famous for saying the internet is a tool, not a toy. I consider Snapchat a power tool, like a nail gun or a drill. Helpful, fun, dangerous, all at the same time. It's not that kids should not use them, but they should be a bit older, ideally high school, show some level of responsibility in their lives, be able to understand and talk about the risks of using the app, and clearly explain to you what they're going to do to protect themselves. Thank you for listening. I'm Joe Langford. I'm a therapist, a sex and tech educator, and a dad, and I specialize in helping families navigate that intersection of adolescence, sexuality, technology, and behavior. More information about me and my work to promote healthy, positive, and safer sexual and social behavior, both online and off, can be found at my website, beheroes.net.
The advice presented in this podcast is a form of education and is intended to provide general information about common though broad topics that impact underage people. Specific circumstances and facts may make said advice unsuitable and/or other actions necessary for individuals. This podcast is meant to be an adjunct, not a replacement, for IRL experience, professional advice, and good old-fashioned common sense. In addition, much of the information included here can and most likely will change with time, culture, and the rapid development of technology. BeHeroes.net does not seek nor accept any monetary gain or financial support from any social media platform mentioned. BeHeroes.net is committed to providing quality consulting, coaching, product, speaker, and contracted therapeutic services, advocacy, and resources to clients, visitors, customers, colleagues, and fans. Appropriate is produced by BeHeroes.net.